He convinced his friends that he was a part of a hitman organization in order to have that man kill his wife. Some people are just very stupid. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Carole Garton. Viewer discretion is advised. This story starts in 1986 near Cottonwood, California. Todd Garton and his friend Lynn and another friend Carole, they all went to high school together. Todd and Lynn were an item for some time, but Todd also had his eyes on Carole. Lynn was expecting her and Todd to eventually become an item and walk down the aisle together, but that didn't happen. You see, Lynn got suspended from high school, and then she ended up seeing Todd less because of that. Todd saw more of Carole. And so Todd and Carole began dating. They were high school sweethearts. And then by 1991, this is after high school now, they got married. Lynn and Todd, they still sort of talked to each other from time to time. But Lynn would go on to meet another man, and his name was Dean Noyes. And then by 1992, Lynn and Dean, they got married. So now we have two happy couples, right? Yeah? Apparently not. At any rate, Dean and Lynn would move to Oregon while Todd and Carole stayed in California. Everything seemed to be going relatively normal for everyone until 1996 or 1997 or so. Todd Garton had a friend named Dale Gordon. And around 1997 or so, Todd began a lie, an unbelievable lie. He told Dale that he, Todd, was an up-and-coming member of a group or organization called The Company. This wasn't a normal organization. They didn't sell cookies. They took people out. He claimed that he was part of The Company, which is an assassin organization. Yeah, Todd Garton, this guy was apparently a paid assassin, or trying to become one. And you see, the way that Todd claimed that he could become an official member of the company is by taking a particular person out. Who was that person? Well, lo and behold, it was Dean Noyes. He was the target for some reason. Over the course of the next year or so, Todd and Dale would discuss plans to take out this hit on Dean Noyes, because Todd was trying to convince Dale to become a part of this company, or the company, I should say. He told Dale that he would be awarded roughly $25,000 for this hit, and that when Dean's life insurance policy, of course, kicked in after he was dead, that is how Dale would be paid, through that. So Dale eventually agreed. He said, yeah, I'll do it. I'll help you out. So Todd kicked his plan into gear. By 1997 or so, he went to Lynn Noyes, Dean's now wife, told her that Dean was having an affair. He then told Lynn, listen, I'm a part of a company, the company, that could take that guy out. No questions asked. Even though he'd already told Dale that he was already hired to kill Dean. It's very confusing. Well, apparently Lynn got into an argument with Dean and asked him, are you having an affair? And apparently Dean said yes. So that was actually true. He was having an affair. So Lynn would then go to Todd Garton and say, all right, do it. Take him out. Kill him. Lynn would give, copies of keys to Dean's vehicle and also to their home in Oregon. Because remember, Dean and Lynn live in Oregon. and Todd and Dale and everyone else involved in this lives in California. So Lynn would continue to talk to Todd about where Dean was going to be at certain times. And at one point he was taking a business trip, and then Todd was going to go to where the business trip was, get a hotel, and find a way to take him out there. Lynn was specific enough to say, like, this is where Dean parks his car at work. This is, like, she gave him very, very specific details about him. And so she was very much a part of this idea or plan to kill her husband. So at this point, Todd decides to loop in another one of their friends, a man named Norman Daniels. He told Norman that the company, this hired organization, hitman, whatever, they said that there were now numerous hits on Dean Noy's life because of embezzlement, because of having an affair, because of other crimes that Dean supposedly committed, and that's why he was being a target. That's why he was a target to be killed by this organization. And apparently Norman, along with Dale, just ate it up and said, oh, wow, okay, yeah, sure, I'll help. Apparently Norman was promised like $1,000 for his help in this. So then Todd, Norman, and Dale, if I get these names confused in this video, by the way, if I say someone else's name in a different, I'm sorry. There's just so many names involved that there's just so much. Anyway, Todd, Dale, Norman travel to Oregon, I think on more than one occasion, on more than one plan to carry out this hit. Well, at one point, they go to Oregon, and for some reason, they can't carry out the hit. Something happens that they can't do it. So then Lynn tells Todd, well, now Dean is going on a business trip to San Francisco. So that's when they're like, okay, so the three hired hitmen go to San Francisco. They get themselves a hotel room close to where Dean is going to be. And so there they discuss, here's how we're going to kill him. Here's what we're going to do. But apparently Dean didn't go to a certain place that he was supposed to go. And so they called the hit off again. So they've attempted to apparently kill Dean Noyes on more than one occasion, but every time something happens where they can't enact the plan. During one of the trips that the trio took to Oregon to carry out one of the failed hits on Dean, Todd and Lynn met up in a hotel room and they had sex. So they were having an affair, essentially. Todd, while, doing that, the other two men would go out. They would buy latex gloves. They would buy everything they would need to hide their identities and erase fingerprints and all that. On one of the occasions, this is the fourth attempt at this point. I think now back in Oregon again. There's just so much with this. Lynn basically tells Dean to take a different vehicle to work. So I guess they have multiple vehicles. And the plan was that Todd would have seen Dean in another vehicle. So Lynn was trying at this point to prevent Dean from being killed. I guess she had a change of heart. She would go to Todd and say, listen, let's call this off. This doesn't need to happen. But he allegedly tells her, well, it's not me. It's the company, the organization. They've hired the hit. If I don't do this, they're going to kill me. But again, it just didn't happen. All these plans, all these attempts to kill Dean Noyes all failed. They never made it happen. So, by October of 1997, Carole Garton, Todd's wife, who is this totally unsuspecting person who has no idea what her husband has been up to, not only planning the hit on a man to kill him, but also he's having this affair with his ex-love interest from high school. And ultimately, that's probably what this is really all about. But anyway, Carole in October of 1997 finds out she's pregnant. According to some people, when Todd found out, he was like, I don't like kids, I don't want kids, kids are stupid. He apparently told people that kids basically meant he would no longer have freedom. So he's, according to some people, seemed upset that he was about to become a father. A couple months goes by, Todd and Carole, they end up purchasing life insurance. Yay, now you know someone's gonna die. Carole's life insurance policy got approved for $125,000. And as my buddy over on Forensic Files would probably say, 125,000 reasons for murder. And of course, Todd was the primary beneficiary of all of that money. In April of 1998, this is kind of also all happening during all of these failed attempts to kill Dean, right? So in April of 1998, they have another failed plan to kill Dean Noyes. And during this plan, Todd goes to Norman Daniels and says, while we're doing this, the company has asked me to ask you if you would like to become an official member. And Norman's like, okay, sure, yeah, let's do it. And so he gives Todd the okay to tell the company he wants to do this. And so Todd tells Norman, all right, you're going to receive a package. You're going to receive an envelope. It's going to have a few photos of your target. It's going to have like a pager. It's going to have things like that. And so Norman receives this envelope, this big manila envelope. And in it are pictures of Carole Garton. That's his hit. That's who this organization, this professional hitman organization has hired Norman to kill. And it also says in these letters, like, if you fail to take out this target, your life will end. Basically, they said, we're going to kill you if you don't kill her. Then why don't they just kill her, right? Also in the envelope are news articles about the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. I guess suggesting that Carole was the secret operative for the IRA, and that's why she needed to be taken out. When Norman told Todd all of this, like, hey, listen, the target's your wife and all of this. And I guess Todd pretended like, oh my God, what? And then he's like, oh, well, yeah, she was a part of the IRA and she also worked for the company. Oh, okay. But she tried to leave the company. That's what he would tell Norman. And Norman's like, oh, shit, really? And so, so Todd pretended like he was upset, but then he kind of went into, well, that's what they wanted, so I guess she has to die. So I guess Todd would help Norman go purchase a gun. He provided Norman a gun holster. Todd tells Norman, listen, you're going to receive an email from the company with further instructions. And Norman did receive an email. The email address was companyt@usa.net. So Norman would go back and forth emailing this company, who in reality, spoiler alert, was actually Todd Garton. So Todd would give Norman some tips and advice on how to do this, how the hit should go. He actually said, listen, you should probably do it when I'm up in Oregon on this other assignment to kill Dean Noyes. That way, police don't come to me, or if they do come to me, I'll have an alibi. Hi, red flag alert, Norman. He even told Norman that Lynn Noyes was also part of the company, and she did psychological evaluations of their employees. And so he told Norman that Lynn will be emailing you as well, back and forth, kind of just going over you and your profile. So that way Lynn could also keep tabs on what Norman was doing and how this plan for him was going. Well, apparently on this trip to Oregon, for some reason, Norman wasn't able to do this job and kill Carole. So some time passes. And then in May of 1998, so Todd told Norman, listen, I'm going to be at a gun show here in May, and it's going to be pretty far away from my house. So that's a perfect opportunity for you to do this, because you don't want the company to kill you if you don't carry out this hit on Carole. Oh, my wife. But you should do it then. That way, again, I'm farther away from the house. There are a lot of witnesses who would see me and they'll know it wasn't me who did it. Just for your sake, right? You don't want people to think that I did it. What? Ugh. It was May 16th, 1998. Todd and his buddy Dale Gordon, remember him from earlier, Lynn, I think even Dean Noyes, they were all at this gun show, right? And at one point, Carole had a doctor's appointment that day. And so after the doctor's appointment, she went to the gun show Todd was not expecting that. And also at the gun show at that point was Norman. And so Norman told Todd, hey, listen, I'll drive home with Carole. We'll go back to the house because she's tired. She doesn't need to be standing up. She's pregnant. She's almost ready to burst, right? And so that's what happens. Norman would end up driving Carole back to Carole's house in Carole's car. Apparently, Norman and Carole would rent a movie. They would watch that movie at Carole's house. Norman then said he got into their vehicle and dropped the movie back off. He returned the movie. This is back when we had to physically go places to rent movies. And they were in these big box things called VHSs. Yeah. So then Norman Daniels drops off the movie. He goes back to Carole and Todd's house. Carole is now laying in bed. He then takes out the gun that he and Todd purchased and he fires 5 shots into Carole, effectively killing her and her unborn child. He then drives away from the house in Carole's Jeep, drops that Jeep off in an abandoned parking lot, and then he catches a taxi, goes back to Carole's house, Carole and Todd's house. He stages the house to look like it's a robbery gone wrong. He then paged the company and saying, job done. He also emailed who he thought was the company, and he emailed them simply, package delivered. Dale Gordon had a girlfriend named Sarah at the time, and Sarah, along with Dale, Lynn, Carole, Todd, they all planned to meet and hang out that particular night. So Dale's girlfriend gets to the Garton house first. As she's pulling up, this is when she sees Norman Daniels leaving in their Jeep. Sarah goes to the house and realizes nobody's there, so she leaves. She ends up going back to the house later that night. Kind of everyone now gets there. This is after Norman has done his thing, trying to make the house look like a burglary gone wrong, but he didn't really do a very good job because the house wasn't very messy. The house looked in neat kind of order. So basically everyone arrives. Todd's like, hey, have you guys seen Carole? Where is she? I don't see her anywhere. And that's when they find Carole's dead body in the bedroom. And so he's like, my wife, she's dead. And then calls 911 and kind of calmly, from what I understand. So later on, both Todd and Lynn would kind of covertly email or correspond with Norman, telling him to dispose of certain pieces of evidence, like get rid of the gun and other things like that. When police were investigating this, because they had to, they would find out through Sarah, Dale's girlfriend, that she saw Norman driving Carole's Jeep away from the house. When she got there, no one answered the door. So at that point, she kind of figures, she must have been dead then at that point. And Norman had to be the one to do it because I saw him leaving in what is a stolen Jeep at that point, away from the house after she was dead. So police basically kind of follow Norman around. They tap his phones and whatnot. But police eventually just kind of arrest Norman Daniels because he left the house. It had to point to him. So apparently he must have told police, listen, I was hired by the company to take her out. And that's when he kind of mentions Todd Garton's involvement. Police at this point have also discovered a $125,000 life insurance policy that Todd was going to collect. He had already started the process of collecting that money. So the police have Norman call Todd. And so it's recorded. And Norman tells Todd, listen, I copped a plea of jealousy. And Todd responds back covertly, I'm going to get onto the phone with the big boys and see what they can do. I'll see whatever monies that you were having coming your way actually is sent to your family. Because he had kids, Norman. This is when police essentially find out about this company. And they find out that Todd and Norman at one point and Dale Gordon were all involved in this plot to kill Dean Noyes. And police are basically able to kind of confirm through phone records about how many times Todd had called Lynn during all of these plans to kill Dean, the names. And then they discovered that the plan to take Carole out. So basically on the envelope that Norman Daniels received about the hit on Carole, there were these label maker labels placed on the envelope, placed on items inside the envelope. And they discovered through receipt purchases that Todd had recently purchased a label maker. Police couldn't find that label maker. They would bring in Lynn and question her. They found out that Lynn was asked to throw the label maker into this nearby river because Todd had told Lynn they could probably get me if they find out I had this label maker and that those labels are on the envelopes, blah, blah, blah. They actually comb this river. It's a big river, right? And they actually find the label maker. It's destroyed, but they find it. And they're able to match the way that the label maker prints to the exact labels on the envelope. They have the receipt that Todd purchased that label maker. Todd keeps telling police, I had nothing to do with this. It was the company. That was it. Police found no evidence that this place even existed, the company, that it was all just made up by Todd, that this was just some big, huge plan of his to convince his friend to murder his wife and try to convince his friends to help murder his lover's husband, which failed. They then find the guy is stupid. He keeps receipts for everything, and they found the receipts for the gun that was used to end up killing Carole, because they ended up finding the gun because Norman Daniels, I guess, didn't throw the gun away in time, and they discovered that this was the gun that shot Carole. But the receipts also found the purchases of latex gloves. They also found out that Todd purchased business cards. And those business cards he had specially made that said like Patriot on it. And this was like a code word or something that the organization, the company, had told Norman, like that was a code word or something. And so they had proof that Todd purchased and made those business cards that he alleges came from the company. He said the company made those, the company sent those, but they had proof that Todd did. They also found a receipt on one purchase that Todd purchased a single manila envelope, a pager, the same pager that was given to Norman, which is a part of the purchase for the label maker. They also found the communications between the email of what supposedly was the company to Norman. They saw the messages of package delivered. They had the recorded calls of Todd saying to Norman on those recorded phone calls, police asked him to call about, hey, listen, I'll see about if we can get the money you were supposed to get goes to your family. Wink, wink. They had so much evidence that Todd was actually the one who organized this entire thing, that Todd made all of these purchases, claiming that he would later say, well, that was the company who did that, but they found out it was him who did it. They found out that Lynn had basically agreed to have her husband killed, essentially by Todd. It sounds like she was more in on Todd's end of the plan than she was being duped into thinking there was this thing called the company. It sounded like she was directly involved in trying to kill her husband and then eventually kill Carole. Ultimately, the plan, the motive was for Todd and Lynn to get back together as they were way back in high school. And also the motivation was the $125,000 life insurance policy that they purchased conveniently shortly before Carole's murder. So, Todd Garton was arrested and charged. Norman Daniels was obviously arrested and charged. Lynn Noyes was arrested and charged, and Dale Gordon was also arrested and charged. Dale was charged with conspiracy to commit murder for the potential murder of Dean Noyes. Dale was also given a deal because he agreed to testify against Lynn and Todd and Norman. Dale Gordon was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and he was paroled after a little under 9 years, so he was released. He would end up actually being on one of the investigation discovery episodes about this case. Norman Daniels, he was the one to actually physically murder Carole. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison. He was eligible for parole for the first time in 2021, but he was denied, and as far as I can tell, he is still in prison. Lynn Noyes would end up deciding not to go to trial. She would end up pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. In 2002, she was sentenced to 25 years in prison. She has actually since been paroled. She has remarried, and she is just living a new life. And then finally, Todd Garton would go on trial. He would plead not guilty because, hey, this was the company, not me. But the jury didn't believe it, and he would end up being convicted, and he was sentenced to death. He would go to the Supreme Court to say, hey, listen, this is an unfair thing, but the Supreme Court said, fuck you, and they said, no, you're being put to death. But as far as I can tell, Todd Garton is still awaiting his execution. This entire complicated, convoluted plan to kill his wife and to kill his lover's husband. Was insane, and it actually pretty much worked. He was able to dupe a man into killing his wife. And poor Carole and her unborn child. She did nothing wrong. The only thing she did wrong was marry Todd Garton, unfortunately. But in my opinion, she got justice. Todd is going to die for what he organized to happen to her. And so Carole and her family got the justice she rightfully deserved. But that is it for this very insane case. True crime, a Rooney Dooney Dingleberry Dongle Ding a Dong Ding a Dong Ding a Dong 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 Ding Dong. No, stop it. Anyway, if you have tripped, fallen, and stumbled your way into this video, hello, I'm Mike. I tell true crime stories here on YouTube, so please subscribe if you like. And also, you can follow me over on TikTok, where I tell multiple short-form true crime stories throughout the week. So the link to that is in the link tree in the description of this video below. So feel free to join. Yes, I also sell merch that we ship internationally. I have a Discord server that you can join if you want, but please be over the age of 18, or if we find out, you will be kicked out if you're not over the age of 18. And yeah, so that's it. That's it. Don't hire people. Don't pretend to be a hitman organization, because that's stupid. Don't do it. That's the lesson here. Don't kill people. That's another lesson. Probably a better lesson than don't pretend to be a hitman organization. Just don't kill people. It's stupid. It's mean. And it's just don't do it. Thanks, Mike. That was great advice to tell people. Don't kill people. Gee, that's... Wow, what original advice, Mike, you idiot. Of course don't kill people. Hi. I don't know how to say goodbye, so I said hi instead. Hello. Hi!